Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. I cannot wait to share our guest with you. I'm very excited. But before we do, I want to thank some people that we always thank. We want to thank brassandwinds.com, a Quinn the Eskimo company. When we're looking for brass and wind instruments, we always go to brassandwinds.com first. They're amazingly supportive folks, and we think you're going to love them. Give them a check out at brassandwinds.com. We are truermu.com, a better way to learn the piano. And we hope you'll check us out if you're interested at all. No matter what your skill level, we think you'll do well with truermu. And if you want to study with a person, we've got Willow School, Georgia, willowschoolga.com. Please check us out, a better way to learn music. All right. I'm going to read to you from the back of this man's biography, which is a phenomenal book. And all of my questions are going to come straight out of it. With his intense drive, endless creativity, and New York swagger, Liberty created the grooves for 13 platinum Billy Joel albums that have sold over 150 million copies, and wrote and performed the drum parts on 22 of Billy's 23 top 40 hits and all of his 6 Grammy-winning recordings. He toured the world multiple times as one of the most well-known drummers of his era. This is a man who played on most of my favorite albums, and I cannot believe I get to talk to him. Mr. Liberty Devitto, welcome to our show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. And during this pandemic, it's great to be anywhere, actually.
Well put. I really enjoyed your autobiography very much. I couldn't put it down. I read it in a single day.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for writing it.
Yeah, well, it started out to be just a history of my family for my kids. I have 4 daughters. And as I was writing it down, I was fortunate enough to keep my parents around. My father passed away when he was 91, my mother when she was 89. So I got to interview them and on a cassette tape, I talked to them what it was like being a kid, where we came from, all this kind of stuff. So that's how that started. Then when I parted ways with Billy, I thought about I used to tell people stories and they would say, why don't you write a book? You got some great stories. And I thought, nobody wants to know my stories, nobody. But the idea of the book is how did these immigrants come over from Italy, and 2 generations later, one of their offspring is playing with one of the biggest single artists ever. How did that happen? It doesn't happen like you see on American Idol and stuff like that. It doesn't happen like that. You have to pay your dues, so that's, I thought I'd set the record straight on how it really happens.
Yeah, it's a fascinating trip, and it's a good information for anybody in the music business who thinks that it's just going to be easy. I've certainly learned the hard way that nothing is really easy in the music business. Yeah.
No, I know that teaching is probably the hardest, because I do not have patience for teaching. First of all, I'm self-taught. As you read in the book, I don't read music. I don't write music. My thing has always been to create something to go with whoever wrote the song. What will complement the song without me walking all over it? So that's what I became good at. I followed the Beatles religiously, and I listened to what Ringo did, and I listened to all the parts of the songs. And as I grew, I took these same ideas into the studio with me. And I was fortunate enough to be able to play with a master who wrote in so many different styles. And, I was able to cop those styles because I had played them over the years, whether it had been playing in a rock band, playing in a wedding band, doing church gigs, whatever it was, I had to learn how to play those things, a lot of ethnic music and stuff.
Well, I never thought of that. Of course, I think of Billy Joel always as this incredibly versatile guy who just couldn't stay in one genre to save his life. But it never occurred to me that there might be some drummers that really wouldn't enjoy not being able to figure out what the heck he wants. You really gravitated to that. You liked playing different styles.
Well, it's really funny because there's a story that I don't tell in the book because it happened during the Grammys. They were in New York, and they asked Billy. It was the first year they came back, and they asked Billy to play New York State of Mind. They hooked him up with Miles Davis's band. And so they had rehearsal the day of the Grammys, and I get a phone call, and it's Billy. And he's like, Lib, please, you have to come here. You got to help me. The drummer cannot play New York State of Mind. Billy style. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
He's a avant-garde jazz drummer that cannot settle into like just playing time, and so I
Mhm.
had to go in, and Miles Davis is playing the trumpet. I'm playing the drums.
That's a great story.
Yeah, well, it just shows you that the different styles of that different people have. I always make a comparison when people say, "Who's the greatest drummer ever?" And I say, "Well, it all depends. Everybody is in a situation for themselves. Like if you put Buddy Rich and Larry Mullen, Larry Mullen played with U2. If you put Buddy Rich in U2, you would say, that guy's terrible. He's overplaying." Or if you put Larry Mullen in the big band that Buddy Rich played with, you say, "That guy's terrible. He's boring. He's just sitting there, playing." So, but Larry Mullen is great in U2. Buddy Rich is great in the big band.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so to play with Billy, you had to, I listened to all kinds of music growing up. Everything. I wasn't afraid to listen to jazz. I wasn't afraid to listen to gospel. I'm not afraid to listen to hip hop. I love it,
Yeah.
just, that's where you get your ideas.
And I'll say now, Zanzibar is trending all of a sudden. I don't know if you're aware of this. This
TikTok.
I know, it's crazy. So all of a sudden Billy Joel is everybody's favorite musician again. And I have to say, Zanzibar, you really did a great job copping that groove, that jazz groove on Zanzibar. It's really nice.
Well, it was, when we did the demo the day before, usually Billy comes in with an idea. He runs it past the band, and if it swings, he'll go home and finish it. Zanzibar did not have the "I got a jazz guitar" in it yet, the line. When he came back with "I got a jazz guitar," it was like, okay, well, we can do this solo now. We can do a jazz solo, and it was like insane. It was like, wow, it's a good thing I played some jazz at the weddings. But what you hear is my limit of when we did "Just the Way You Are" and the Stranger album. When "Just the Way You Are" was a hit, me and Doug Stegmeyer, the bass player, were getting calls from these jazz guys. Like Dave Gruen and what's his name, who wrote the theme for Taxi?
Bob James. Bob James.
Bob James would call us. We went into record with Bob James, and he handed me a chart. I looked at Doug and said, "What am I going to do? I can't read music." Doug said, he looked at the chart. He went, "It's simple. Just watch me." So,
Yeah. So, now I get, since we're talking about Zanzibar, I have a lot of other questions, and I want to get back to your family first. But since we're on Zanzibar,
Yeah.
I think the Freddie Hubbard solo on Zanzibar is actually one of the best Freddie Hubbard solos and one of the best jazz solos I've ever heard. And I've listened to quite a lot of jazz. You say that just Phil Ramone just brought Freddie in from LA. He was in LA. Did you have any connection with Freddie at all in that, or was it just
No. We had recorded the basic track, and there was talk, like they should get somebody to play a real jazz solo. And Freddie Hubbard, they picked him. I think they flew out to LA and recorded him. That he recorded 3 tracks, Freddie, and then Phil picked the best of the 3,
right?
Built that solo,
Like he did with Woods on Just the Way You Are.
Just the Way You Are. Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to see Freddie Hubbard after that, or talk to him about that?
No.
Crazy. It's such an integral part of that tune.
It really is, just the Way You Are, the sax part. But we went to see Phil Woods in a club one night. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, I want to start at the beginning, actually. I want to go back to your family. You mentioned, and it makes sense that you talk a lot about your family in the first part of the book. It's a major part of the book. It makes sense that it was a family history for your kids. You describe it in great detail. There's a legacy of violence included in that narrative, and you're very open about it. Why did you include so much, so many violent and, even horrific kind of stories about your family?
Well, the whole book is written from looking at what happened in my life through standing in the shoes of the people that actually did the action. Like looking at Billy and thinking about why he did certain things during our career, why he let certain guys go, why in the end he let me go. So it was actually looking at my dad, standing in my dad's shoes. Why did he do that to me? Because that's how he grew up. He grew up in Brooklyn. He would fight his way through life. Went in the military. was a paratrooper, signed up because they made $50 more a week, you know, just insane stuff to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, so when he came out, he became a New York City policeman. And, you know, he took the job home sometimes. And it was tough. I mean, it was tough. I got the brunt of it.
Right.
My sister and my other brothers, you know, they were younger than me. So I was the one that got the brunt. But I will say that to every cloud, there's a silver lining. I did spend a lot of time in my room by myself, listening to music.
Yeah.
You know, that became my sanctuary. You know, the Beach Boys have that song, "In My Room."
Right.
You know, that's a place where I can go. That's my, you know, haven, you know, safe haven. And that's
Similar
what
story with Bruce Springsteen has a similar kind of story.
Right. I read his
Yeah.
book. Yes, the same type of thing. Yeah, it becomes this thing. You get away from the world, you know, that's trying to drag you down.
Well, I want to
And
talk about your dad a little bit. He was at the invasion of Normandy. He
yes,
went on to become a police officer. He dates a married woman, and after they get married, he isn't even allowed to live with her forever because of his mom. This is a
that's
guy
right.
with an incredible amount of heart and character, and I mean, not just anyone would do that. So obviously, this is a wonderful man, and yet he was very rough with you. I mean, you talk about, you know, he brought his job home with him. He lost control when he was playing around with you, and he took it personally. And, you know, I'm a dad and I know those moments, but, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, there's some pretty scary moments. Talk about your relationship with him.
Well, I think my dad married my mom and thought that he had. Well, I was saying in the book, he called my mother his Gina Lola Brigida. You know, like the beautiful actress that she is. My mother was beautiful when she was younger. I have pictures of me and her and when we were young. And so when I was born, you know, I came into the relationship right away. And I think he was a little jealous of that. He was the tough guy, you know, always in control. And now his Gina Lola Brigida is loving this other person, you know.
Yeah.
And as I grew up, I could not be the person that he wanted me to be. Like I say in the book, he would grab my hands and say, "Your nails are too long. You got to clip them. How are you going to make a fist?" You know, it's like, I'm not going to make a fist. Why am I going to make a fist? You know. So there was always that thing going on where it was a competition of, you know, and the world was changing. The 60s were coming. The peace and love. He was like World War II. Let's go get them. You know. And you know, don't take anything from anybody. Just, you know, you got to fight, go fight.
Right.
You know.
Well, there's a turning point you mentioned in your relationship where you're a little bit older. I think you're in your early 20s or something like that, maybe younger than that. And you're strung out on drugs and he finds you and he comes home and you ask him, "Are you going to kill me now?" And he bursts into tears and says, "You know, I lost my mom. I don't want to lose my son." Was that really a turning point for you, or was it just a nice moment?
No, that was definitely a turning point. It was like I saw his sensitive side. I had never really seen anything like that before in him. He was always the tough guy. I mean, you know, always. My sister had a boyfriend that he didn't like. I can remember him chasing the kid down the street and punching him in the head. Yeah, it was really violent. But yeah, so that when I saw that, you know, I mean, us Italian guys, like all the guys, we have this attachment to our mothers. And when he lost his mother, you know, his mother was everything to him. His mother, my grandmother was the center of the family. After she passed away, the family started to fall apart. You know, we didn't all go to one place for Sunday dinners anymore. You know, we had a big family. And after she passed, it started to fade away, you know, fade. And she held that family together, and he loved his mother, you know, and so then he lost her, and then I came and tell him this thing that, you know, and he always threatened to kill me if I ever did drugs, and he just you know, started weeping. You know, I thought, wow, that's, you know,
So
showed his
how did it
sensitive
change
side.
after that? I mean, it sounds like it was as much you realizing things about him and changing your expectations as him changing his attitude towards you.
Yeah, well, he kind of then started to let me. He freed me up a little bit about playing the drums and being that musician. You know, trying to. He had. My parents had a. I had a cousin who married this gentleman, Hank, who was very smart in finance and everything like that. And they asked Hank, who was much older than I was, they were like the Elvis generation, my cousins, and they asked Hank to talk to me about what I want to do, right? So I went out with Hank, and we hung out, and he was talking to me about, like, what are you going to do? Not everybody makes it, no, all this kind of stuff. He came back to my parents and he said, look, he's determined to do what he does. He may fail, he knows it, or he may be very famous, but he is determined to do what he's going to do, and nothing is going to stop him. That's when my parents said, okay, he's going to do it.
And that
He's got to try it.
Yeah. And you dove straight in and you never looked back.
Never looked back. When I broke up with a girl once, and because her father wanted me to join the telephone company so I could marry his daughter. I was only like 18 then, and I asked my mother, what should I do? Quit the drums and marry his daughter and work for the telephone company? And my mother said, if you quit your drums and one of your friends makes it, you're going to hate her for the rest of your life, because you will think that could have been you if it wasn't for her. So it's all that growing up stuff that makes you the person that you are today.
Yeah. I want to talk about one of those moments. You talk in the book about the Let It Be album, and you said that Let It Be showed you that it takes hard work to make good music. I have to admit, I was a little confused by that comment, because you worked really hard before that. I don't think there's a moment in your book you didn't. What kind of hard work were you talking about? How is that different from what you'd already done?
There's a lot of bands that the other young people that they travel in a van. It's hard work. They get up and they play. Being in the studio and creating a sound that's yours, and taking a song that somebody just wrote words to and has a couple of chords and making it into a song. This is what I saw on that Let It Be album. I thought the Beatles walked into the studio and they started playing, and here comes Ticket to Ride, and here comes Paperback Writer, and all that kind of stuff. When I heard this album, I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. I'm not bad, and I saw that when the Let It Be album did come out, how it grew into this, what everybody hears.
Yeah.
And how much work it took for them to play the song over and over again. Even, and on that album, there's sometimes where you can tell John Lennon does not like this song that Paul McCartney's bringing in, but in the end, they developed it and it became a great song. So it takes that kind of hard work. It takes time. Sometimes you have to record it over and over again. You don't get it right the first time, or you think you have it right, and the artist says, "I don't like that part."
So it sounds to me like you're talking about a different kind of hard work. Like you knew all about the digging a ditch kind of hard work, the putting in the time and working and sweating, but you didn't know about the patience part.
No, I thought once you get there in the studio, that's it. I'm just going to play. I'm just going to play. No, man, it's like, that's not working. I remember Phil Ramone used to let us beat the heck out of the song for an hour. We first go in there and we'd be trying new things, and guitar player would have a suggestion for me, and I'd have a suggestion for Billy to play something, and I'd see Phil in the control room just talking to the engineer, for an hour. Then he'd press the talkback button. He goes, "Okay, you guys really want to know how the song should go now?"
Did you like Phil? Did you like working with him?
Loved Phil. We loved Phil. We had this fear of Phil when we first went in the studio, because, he was working with Steve Gadd all the time, and all those people, all those records that we listened to. We knew of his reputation of being this great producer, but he was the man behind the glass. He was the other guy in the band. And he treated us like we were his children. Like, this is going to be great. We're going to have fun. We had more fun. He was so funny and so relaxed in the studio. One day he was eating pizza. We all got pizza, during the break. And he'd be eating the pizza. He just got a brand new shirt, right? You're eating the pizza, a sauce drops on his pizza. He goes like this, wipes it off. He goes, puts a napkin down, starts eating the pizza. Again, sauce on the shirt, wipes it off. Right. Finally, he eats the pizza, sauce again on the shirt. He looked at the pizza and he goes, okay, you want the shirt? Take the shirt. You know, like that's the kind of guy he was. You know, we played jokes on each other. Me and Russell used to write late notes going in if we were 5 minutes late, make up things like I was at home and I tried to plug something in and the circuit went crazy and my glasses went flying and I couldn't find them. I had to go to the optician and get new glasses, you know, and I'd hand him the note. He'd be reading it and laughing. Then Russell would come in right behind me and hand him the note. And his note was, I'm sorry I'm late. I got hit with flying glasses, you know, stuff like that. Those are the jokes that we said in the studio. And it was like a lot of that. It was a pleasure to go to the studio.
Well, The Bridge was the last opportunity you had to work with him, with Billy. Did that album feel different when you were working on it than the others?
The Bridge is Stormfront, you mean? Stormfront, we didn't.
Oh, he didn't produce Stormfront, though.
No.
No, so I'm talking about the last album with Phil Ramone.
Right, which was The Bridge, exactly.
Did it feel different to do that album, you know, perhaps precipitating the change?
Well, I think Billy was lacking too in his writing. You know, there's some good songs on The Bridge, and it wasn't produced to be great. It just, I mean, there's great songs. I mean, Big Man on Mulberry Street's on it. What else is on it? Running on Ice.
Temptation.
Yeah, there's good songs, but it took time. It really took a lot to get them out. You know, to the point where Billy was writing Code of Silence, which became Code of Silence. He couldn't write the lyrics. And Cyndi Lauper walked in and he went, well, can you write these lyrics, please? You know, he was like, I can't do this. He was getting a blockage there. So I think it was time for a change for Billy, you know, with producers.
Yeah.
You know, and also that was when the band left too.
Right.
You know, Russell and Doug, they were gone after that. They weren't on Stormfront. I was the only one who went with them, with Billy.
Well, now I was aware of the band dropping, and I think what I didn't realize was that you mentioned in your book after The Bridge, when Billy changed producers, that Phil Ramone actually he took it personally. He didn't like it. He was very hurt. That surprises me. You know, I'm sure he loved the relationship, but I would think he would just see it as, you know, well, we had our time, but it really bothered him.
Well, yeah. Well, I was thinking about this today. There's this website on Facebook called Remembering. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, it's a Billy Joel fan page.
You're talking about Completely Retold?
There you go. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah.
And I go on it sometimes, and I read some of these things that people write. Like the other day, somebody wrote, like, "I hate Uptown Girl," you know. It's like, and I'm thinking, you know, for you guys to say that, it's like you don't know what went into that to make that record. We put our heart and soul into making that record, you know. So, in that way, it was the same thing. We became such good friends. Phil, us, Billy with us. We were all friends, you know, it was one for all and all for one. And so when the time comes that it's kind of a breakup, and like I said, when I wrote the book, I wanted to put myself in Billy's shoes. It was time for Billy to change producers, to try something different. You know, I mean, the man had his career spanned how many years, you know? He's still selling out the Garden all the time without an album out for 20 years now.
Right.
You know? It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. He's like Sinatra now, you know? and so that, it was very hurtful. You know, you lose friends too. You know, when Doug and Russell left the band, I knew Russell when he was 15 years old. He used to come to my house. We try to start bands and stuff.
Yeah.
So your friends go. You know, when you're playing, you don't see them anymore. Yeah. So
my next question's about Russell, actually, and I did not know that he was a songwriter as well as just, you know. So you've got a band full of full musicians. This isn't just a band full of sidemen with Billy Joel at the front. You've got guys, any one of whom, I'm not saying any one of them could have been Billy, but any one of them could have fronted a band. How do
Yeah.
you have a band full of people with that much going on? Or is that always the case with the best bands?
Well, I think Billy saw us at Topper, the band Topper. That's what you're referring to with
Yeah.
Russell. And it was me, Doug, Russell, and this guy, Howie Emerson. And it was a great, great guitar player, still is. And he saw that the energy in that band and the personalities that went with it. So when he liked what he heard, so why not bring that into him to make that change that he needed? You know,
Yeah.
the energy of that band, bring it, put it behind him.
But it's a risky thing to bring strong personalities into a band because then but apparently he thrived on the fighting and the arguing and stuff. So that's good for
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He loved it. You know, I used to tell him that something was horrible all the time. You know, like he'd call me up. You know, what do you think of this? That's terrible. You know, I knew you were going to say that. You go back and write something else. You know,
Is that how Handball became a hit?
the handball. Yeah, handball. Yeah, handball. We used to try to play handball like on the Turnstile store. We'd go at a hotel and get a curve and he was writing handball. Da, 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 da. It's like trying to do that, that band Stuff where the Gad was in and
Uh-huh.
all that. Trying to be like that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of for fans that are not as crazy as I am about Billy Joel and haven't looked at every deep cut.
yeah,
Handball is an instrumental that was tried for a few times in concert, and you can find it. It's a pretty good little tune. It sounds like something maybe Charlie Rose would use at the beginning of a show or something like that. You know,
right. We you can find it live. We played it's called Billy Joel Tonight. It was a concert we did in Connecticut. We played handball.
yeah. So it was just something to try, and then it just kind of went its way.
Yeah, we thought we were being hip.
Yeah.
Jazz cats.
So the Billy Joel band was a real family for you. Could you talk
Yes.
about the difference between the family of Billy Joel band versus your blood family? Well, did it feel like the same, or did it feel like a different quality of family, or even a better one?
No, it was the same. It was basically based around food and having a great time. You know, we would party a lot in the beginning. You know, but when we got on stage, if one guy was like lacking, another guy would pick up and play harder. You know, Billy would always look up to me. You know, the reason why Billy wanted me in the band was because he always wanted somebody to people to look at somebody else just so he could pick his nose for a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody else would be featured.
The
Well,
first
everybody, we were Topper. Every guy was featured. Every guy was great.
I remember my first Billy Joel concert, and I remember seeing you and how much you moved. And I even told my drummer friend, like, man, Liberty was just all over the place. He was moving so much. I couldn't stop looking at him.
I thought you were going to say, I remember the first one I saw, and I saw Billy pick his nose that one time because.
Right. Yeah, I'll say that in an interview. Sure. I want him to see that. So,
Yeah.
so when you're in a band, the Billy Joel band, that's pretty high up. There aren't a whole lot of bands that did as well as that. And you think once you're in, you're in. But I mean, since the Billy Joel band, you've been down and out too. Is it weird
Yeah.
to have been so in and then so out? Is that strange?
Weird. There's a bubble. You're in the bubble. And when that bubble bursts, I mean, people think of the bubble as you can get anything you want, and it's true. That's the bubble you're in. You're famous. You get stopped by a cop for speeding, and they say, "Hey, aren't you?" Yeah, I am. Well, slow down, and you go. It's like that kind of bubble you're in, and when that bubble bursts, you have to find reality again. And fortunate enough, when my bubble burst, I have a great family support, my daughters and stuff like that. And like I say in the book, my friend Wayne Blanchard from Sabian Cymbals, who was working for Sabian Cymbals at the time, when I said, what am I going to do? How do I get out of this hole? He said, first of all, you have to stop saying that you were formerly Billy Joel's drummer or you used to play with Billy Joel. No, you are the guy that Billy picked to make those incredible records and to help him on those amazing tours. That's who you are. And when I started to think like that, and I would hear the records on the radio, it's like, yeah, that's me. I'm still relevant. I'm on the radio all the time, you know? So I could build from there. You know, that's when I started to play out. The tough part was to get gigs, because everybody thought, oh no, he played with Billy Joel, he probably wants too much money. You know, it's like, no, man, it's not true. You know, I don't know if you saw Hired Gun. Did you see Hired Gun?
No.
We did a documentary called Hired Gun, and it's myself, Kenny Aronoff, David Foster's in it, Rob Zombie, a whole bunch of different people talking about what the business is really like. And a lot of guys are like, you know, I went to my ATM and I put the card in, and a note come out and said, you better get a gig, pal. It's empty. You know, so it's a real reality type of thing. Kenny talks about when he went in to do the Jack and Diane part, and he told John Mellencamp told him, I want a fill, a big fill on this Jack and Diane thing. And Kenny's like, what am I going to play? What am I going to do? You know, and he goes through the steps of how he thought about what he was going to do as he's getting closer, because he could have blew his career right there. That would have been it, you know? So well, it's a lot of that.
So this is, let's say there are some folks right now in bubbles, maybe not at this moment because of the pandemic, but certainly folks that are in bubbles of one kind or another.
Yeah.
What's your advice to those people? I mean, did you see the end of the bubble coming someday? Did you know, or were you in denial the whole time and thinking this is never going to end? What do you tell people in those bubbles?
Never thought it was going to end. I mean, it was a pop. That was it. It's a pop. Luckily, you know that saying, like, be nice to the people you see on the way up because you're going to meet them on the way down again.
Right.
I was always maintained that, you know, never used the fame as like a snobby thing. And, you know, I always remember Billy saying that you know, when people said he was a star, he always used to say, star is a big ball of gas that eventually burns itself out, you know, so he didn't like being referred to as a star. And if he started to act like a star, I would smack him, you know. We came from a blue collar families. Long Island was a blue collar place when we were growing up. And I kind of remained blue collar. We all did. You know, Billy made a lot of money. He was able to buy these great places. And I think some of the change came when he kind of lost his blue collar thing, but he still kept the foot in it because he fought for the Bay Men on Long Island. You know, he loves Long Island, and you know, he knows where he comes from, but he's got enough money to do whatever he feels like it. The rest of us were like, okay, we're not going to get out of the blue collar thing. We're always going to be in it. We'll be upper blue collar, but we're not going to be out of it, you know? So that's where we stayed. And you know, I think you enjoy life more there, you know, when you stay normal and you're aware of like who you really are.
Yeah.
You know?
So is your advice to the people in the bubble, don't forget who you are because you're going to be that person again?
Exactly. You will be that person again.
That's great. Well, I'm hoping for my bubble and I'll remember that when I'm in it.
Well, you got a bubble. I mean, you play so well. I mean, like I said, I was listening to your stuff and it's like, oh boy, he's going to ask me like these questions about music. And I'm going to say,
oh yeah, I got these music theory questions here. Now, supposing you've got 2 quarter notes in it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I do
Somebody
want
asked me to click. I did the first drum clinic I ever did. Somebody said, they asked me what size of my drums were. And I went, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know what size they were, you know, 8, 10, 12. I didn't know they came like that.
Right.
You know? And then somebody said, so don't you feel bad not being able to read music and you become so famous? And I took like a $10 bill out of my pocket and I started wiping the tears off my eye. I said, no, I don't. I don't feel bad. I wish that I had studied and learned to read music because there's so many opportunities that could open up for me. Like the jingle thing was really big at one time and I could not get into the jingle thing. And I remember playing with Neil Jason, who's a great bass player, and he would do sessions with us with Phil Ramone, and then he'd go off to do a jingle, and he would be like, I do so many jingles, I don't even hear what I played. Then I'm off to the next one, you know. But I could never get into something like that, you know. So.
When I was in college, I had a drummer friend, and he was mad at you because he went to a drum clinic, or maybe he heard this story that he heard about a drum clinic, and there was a drummer, I don't remember who it was, who said something like, "You really need to know your rudiments. You really need to study." And then you come and you're like, "No, you don't need to know that stuff. I played with Billy Joel and Madison Square. You just need to have heart." And he was mad at you for that. Do you still feel that way?
I feel like I do rudiments, but I don't know that I'm doing them. You know, I mean, like I say in the book, if you want to be the best paradiddleist in the world, you know, it's funny, that part of the book. I'm doing the audio book now, and my daughter is she's on TV and stuff like that, so she's reading the business part and the clinic part, and she sent me the tape, and she's reading, "You can become the greatest paradiddleist." And then she stops and she asks the engineer, "Is that a real word?" But you can become that. And a lot of guys get hung up on that. They get hung up on that and forget that it's the groove that is important with the drums, not how many chops you have. It's the groove. I really believe that when a drummer starts playing, for the first couple of years, he probably shouldn't take lessons at all. To just like listen to music, listen to why, and that record that you love so much, what do you love about that? You know, I felt something like that changed the way I think when I heard the Dave Brubeck and I heard Joe Murillo play drums. It was like, that feels so good. You know, why does that feel so good? It's where he's putting it. You know, I'm sure there's other jazz drummers that can play, but it's where he puts it.
Yeah.
You know, why does a kid like AC/DC? It's so simple, full rud what he's playing, but it's how he's playing it.
Right.
Doesn't matter what you're playing. It's how you play it. You know, I remember. I don't know if you know Dom Famularo. He's such an inspiration to drummers. He's the global ambassador for drums. Knows everything about drums, teaches all over the world on the internet. We went to see Dave Weckl once. And I had to tap him on the shoulder and I said, "Where's one?" And he looked at me and he said, "I don't know." When he said, "I don't know," it was like, okay, I'm not crazy.
Right.
He
was having some fun with that though.
Yeah. But Weckl, I mean, I saw him later and play at a NAMM show once, and he was kind of settling down, and it was like, okay, his groove's really getting good now, you know.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that play those chops, and it's like, whoa, what happened there? You know,
well, these days it's easy to learn chops because there's millions of videos, and it's easy to get really good at the chops without ever having been in a music situation. So, you know, I can see where that mentality could get worse and worse as we go.
Yeah, and the worse that it gets, the more it'll keep you out of the music part of it. You know, like, I mean, you watch Questlove on TV. He doesn't play anything really hard, but his groove is so thick, you know.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about some grooves. First of all, I want to thank you for clearing up a few mysteries for me in your book. You wonderfully talk about song after song after song, and you answered some questions I'd had forever. Among them, why Mr. Steve Kahn? You explained the Mr. Steve Kahn mystery to me, and I'll let folks read the book to get the answer to that. But thank you for explaining that. I want to talk about several of my very favorite songs that you explained some things about them. One was "Get It Right the First Time," one of my all-time favorites. And you didn't get it right the first time, did you?
No. It's funny because we would come in and record a song like "Move It Out." Let's try to get it right the first time. No, can't get it. Try the next day, try "The Stranger," get it. Try get it right the first time. Couldn't get it. You know, and it went on like that for the whole album, to the point where I think I explained in the book that I told Phil, why don't you get like Steve Gadd to play it, or Stuff to play it, and Billy will sing it. And Phil went, "No, you guys are going to get it. You're going to get it. It's there. You just have to get it," you know. And I think that that's me impersonating Steve Gadd.
Yeah. But obviously that wasn't enough. I think you talk about how impersonating Steve Gadd didn't do it. You had to be you being
right,
Steve Gadd.
right. Well, that's why it took so long to get it, because I was trying to be Steve Gadd. But I
Yeah.
can't be Steve Gadd. I have to be me playing something like Steve Gadd might play.
Right.
You know,
But it definitely
like,
sounds like you and not him.
yes, because
Yeah.
I put my Liberty DeVito stamp on it.
Right.
And you know, it's funny. It took me time to fall into the groove. I think I said in the book too. So that's why it fades in.
Which I love.
Because
I love that fade in too.
I always had to do a fill. Like I had to go ba, 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 da, ba, 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 boom, boom. Without that fill, I couldn't do it.
Right. So they took the fill out and just faded it in.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, sometimes our limitations create great things. I love that fade in. It's one of the best things about the song.
Yeah, well, I think that's a big part of playing music too, is you take your limitations and you invest in them and you make them great.
Yeah.
You know?
You say that you made a mistake on the song Until the Night, but you don't say
Yes.
what that was. I've never heard a mistake. What was your mistake on Until the Night?
I came in with the 2 and 4 part too soon in the build when it's going when it's and they're holding me down and then open it up. It's a big just beginning to do. I'm just beginning to feel. I'm for the night. I should have waited one more. I should have waited one more, but I didn't.
Huh. I'll have to listen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm sure, you know, most people probably listened and thought, wow, that Liberty coming in early like that. What a stroke of genius.
Brilliant. You know, yeah.
Okay. And then there's Easy Money. Gotta be my all-time favorite. And you told me the reason that is because that was just a kick-in session.
Yeah. The song was written for Rodney Dangerfield's film, Easy Money.
Yeah.
It was Phil brought everybody in. We're going to do this. Just do it. Billy just wanted to be a singer, the soul singer in the booth. We had Richard T playing piano, Leon von Darvis, or I don't remember his name, but playing organ. Eric Gale was playing guitar, you know, and it was me and Doug and Russell and David, you know, in this with the horns of Michael Brecker playing saxophone, all this stuff going on. And with all that sound at once, it was so exciting, you know. And to be the beginning of the song, when I went to see it, the movie, I forgot that we had done the song. I didn't know where the song was placed. Ah. So the first thing you hear is, bah, 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 it was so cool. So cool. You know, to be in the middle of all this whole band.
The groove of that song is truly remarkable. It is just, and a great way to start the record.
Yeah, it was fun. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. That was probably the most exciting session ever.
Are there any songs that you thought were dogs that you told Billy, forget this, that he ignored you and it went on to become a song that was actually okay?
We all thought Just the Way You Are was a dog.
Oh, right. Well, not that one, obviously.
Yeah, we thought that was a dog. What else come on to me? I told Billy that Uptown Girl is probably the worst song he ever did, right?
But you just said the kids who don't like Uptown Girl.
It's the dumbest song. That's the dumbest. Well, that shows you how much we had to work it to get it to be it's the dumbest song he ever wrote.
That's funny. That's funny. I want to move off a little bit to something. You backed Karen Carpenter,
yes,
with the Billy Joel Band. Now, this may be a stupid question, and I apologize if it is. Were you aware of her prowess as a drummer?
Yes, I was. I had seen videos of her playing, you know, and stuff like that. And but I did also know that Ron Tutt had played on the Carpenters records.
Yeah.
You know, so when she came in, she was ready for somebody else to be playing drums, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was a Phil Ramone setup, and you know, the whole band, Billy Joel band. At the same time, we were doing Glass Houses, so we were like ruffians. You may be right. Close to the Borderline, Still Rock and Roll to Me, and then there's Karen.
Right.
The next day,
So did you take?
there was one point where we did a song called "Make Believe It's Your First Time," you know, and the lyrics that she's singing, it's a beautiful ballad, and she's singing, "Make believe it's your first time, and I'll make believe it's mine," like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just said over the microphone, out the drums out, I said, "She should sing 'Make Believe It's Your First Time,' and I'll guarantee it's mine." We had a laughing fit that we had to stop the session and take a break because nobody could stop laughing. Even she was laughing.
That's funny. Did you talk about drums with her at all? Did she relate to you as a drummer?
She played my drums.
Oh, wow.
I went out and played the drums. Yeah, she was good. She's a good drummer. Yeah.
Is your experience as an integral part of the Billy Joel band, do you think it's a typical story for a band member, or do you feel like it's, kind of more personal to you?
Well, now you said a band member. Now, Ringo was a band member. He was in the Beatles. Liberty Devitto played with Billy Joel and assumed he was a band member. That's where the problem came in.
Okay.
Because in the beginning, it was like, when I get something, you guys will share the wealth. And then when lawyers came in that had no connection with the Turnstiles album or the Stranger album, and didn't know about rent-a-cars and didn't know, about setting up and then playing immediately, that kind of thing, that's when it started to change. They were like, "Hey, Billy, well, why are you giving these guys so much?" It's like, so assuming that you're a band member is different than actually on paper you are a band member.
It's true. Although some band members have met similar fates, true band members.
Well, it's funny because when you think that they're a band, like I think Bon Jovi, maybe like John is the only one signed to the label, but he treats them like a band. So I think there's a lot of bands like that.
Yeah.
Like, in the 60s and earlier, when you heard about all those bands that used to record, but the guys really weren't the guys that were playing on the records, that must have been really weird. To go to the session. And I mean, I've done that with other bands, with newer bands where they're a band, but I come in and play drums. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Like, you're the drummer in the band. Why aren't you playing?
Right. Well, we talked, I don't know if you saw the video with Reese Clark. We talked quite a bit about that because he was the touring guy, but yet when it came to the studio, he was only really allowed to play on Captain Jack. And that was his experience. Right.
Which he did a great job on. He's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
Reese. That's who I went to see when I first, like Doug used to tell me, he said, you got to come see the band. It's Billy Mania. And I was like, I wasn't even into Billy Joel when I got the call to go audition for him, and he says, "You got to come see it. Billy's going to want to move back to New York and he's going to want to replace the band, have the same band, and I told him about you. And of course, he remembers you from My House, and so I went to see them play and I thought, great, they're great. And Reese was a great live drummer. There's just something about the studio. I don't know.
You want to say more about that? Something about the studio? No.
No.
Did you mean something about the studio for him or something about the studio in general?
Something about the studio in general, where they choose somebody else to play in place of the guy that really.
So the politics of studio is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Producers feel comfortable with certain guys. Phil could say anything to me, and I know what he's talking about. Somebody new in there might be like, I just played on this kid's record. Got to deal with Curb, the label, and he had everything done, and I came in and he wanted live drums on it. So it's like, okay. And then I see him play with his band, and there's this other guy playing drums. It's like weird. Like with Billy, when we did the Turnstiles tour, and we were playing songs from Piano Man and Street Life, which Ron Tutt played on. If you listen to how we played them, we actually made them our own. We put our stamp, the Topper stamp on them.
Right.
which really made them take off, you know.
Yes, yes. The
So
live versions are quite different from the studio versions in that way.
yeah, that's why Phil said when he first met us, he said, I want you to be the rock and roll animals that you are on stage,
Yeah.
in the studio. He did tame us down a little bit because, like moving out, I had a really, somebody said it's like somebody tied your testicles to the seat, but you're playing great,
Well, he liked the fact that you guys weren't, steady as a rock with your tempos,
Right,
that it sped up and
right.
slowed down a little bit. I think some people did not like that, or they noticed it and they weren't used to it in a studio recording, but it does add a lot of energy to the recordings.
Sure, sure. You want that to go. I've been listening to the Beatles. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have
Yeah.
4 daughters. The other ones are in their 30s, and one reached 40 already, and one that's 4 years old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And she's a Beatle fanatic, this little 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I've been listening to a lot of Beatles. She wants them on in the car. She wants them on in the house. She's, and I listen to, you can hear them speed up and slow down in the records,
Right.
which because everything is so tempo wise, like locked in, programmed, that you've been listening to now on the radio for so long, you can really hear it now when a band speeds up and slows down. But that's the energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the excitement, that's lacking in music today.
Yeah. You heard the Beatles and it changed your world, and now we've got it. I'm on that Billy Joel completely retold group, and they shared a video of, we're going to go back to Zanzibar. This group of kids. I
Right.
think you saw it too. You saw it.
I did. I said, that's really good.
They were amazing. So here you've got a bunch of kids, 50 years later or however many years it is, and they're trying to be you. What does that feel like?
It feels really cool. I mean, when you make records, everybody asks, did you know that it was going to be a hit when you made the Stranger album? No, no, we were just a bunch of guys that were friends that were in the studio doing what we love. Who knew that 50 years later, like I said, I'm sure that Paul McCartney's like, oh my God, when are they going to stop listening to this stuff?
It does seem incredible to me. I mean, you take albums like Born to Run or, the Toto hits or something, you got to have some idea that what you're doing is special. Sometimes, don't you?
Well, it's good because you like it. But the problem I have is that I like everything I play on.
Me too. I understand that feeling.
Yeah. Wasn't that great? What do you mean, no?
Well, what are you going to tell the kids today? We have students at our Willow Music, and, people are checking out this video, and they're drummers. And what do you want to tell them, these kids coming up?
I want to tell them that no matter what you do, you have to do it with passion. It has to be your passion. Without passion, you leave half of what you can accomplish behind, because the drums became my entire life. Playing music became my entire life. Even before I was in a band, listening to music became my entire life. I had a little record player, and I would play songs and listen and just be engrossed by music. It was my passion. I was the kid in school that loved music. Like I said in the book, I could have told them that I was going to the moon, and kids in my school, and they would have went like, "You're crazy." When I told them that I wanted to be a famous musician, they were like, "Yeah, you're crazy." But then in the book, like I say, well, me and Neil Armstrong kind of, proved them wrong. But I go back to my high school reunions now. We went. It was 50 years since I graduated, and it's totally different now. Everybody's like, I knew that you were going to do it. I knew. Yeah, a couple of you did, but yeah, my yearbook, they write things like, keep your head, and one day you'll play with Steve Winwood, because I loved Steve Winwood when I was in high school, And so I guess I was always that guy that was into the music, Yeah. So passion, you have to have the passion for your instrument. And it's tough sometimes to keep up that energy, but you have to find it somewhere. You got to get inspired somewhere.
Okay, so inspiration. What's the difference between passion and just hard work?
The difference between passion, I think passion brings on the hard work, because you want it so badly. The music business and the record business especially has this way of always dangling that carrot in front of the horse. It's always there. That carrot is always there. Because I remember I when I lived on Long Island, I had my own house, raising my family, and next to me, a dentist lived next to me. And I said to him once, I said, I wish I had a job like you, where I knew that I was going to go to work and I was going to have these patients, and and he looked at me and goes, the difference between you and me is I go to work, and in an 8-hour day, I can only fit in a certain amount of patients. So that's how much money I'm going to make that day. With you, you could write a hit record, you could play on a hit record, and your life totally changes. That's that carrot. That's like, if that could only happen to me, if that can happen to me, how can I make that happen? Passion is the first thing you have to have. Passion.
Well, I want folks to read your book, and I want them to keep up with you. How are they going to keep up with you? Do you have a website? What do you want people to know about how to reach you?
I don't talk to anybody.
This is his last interview, folks.
This is it. No, I'm on Facebook all the time. Like, you found me on Facebook. You can write me on Facebook. I don't have a website. My two bands that I'm playing with now do have websites. The Slim Kings, which is, this is kind of weird, because the Slim Kings and there's the Lords of 52nd Street. So I'm kind of a king and a lord at the same time. But,
it's good to be king.
Yeah, the Lords is myself, Richie Canada, who played sax on all those Only the Good Die Young, Scenes from a Restaurant, Still Want Her Older Me, all those stuff, and Russell Javers, who's in the band. And that's the one that we're making a living with. The Slim Kings is a new band with two guys. We write our own songs and we record our own albums. The guys are in their early 30s. I always feel that when somebody has had success like I have had, and then they go on to start another band when they get older, that band sounds like the band that they just left. Like classic rock guys, when they play, hey, I got a new album out. Yeah, well, it sounds like the old album that you had when, in the 80s. I didn't want that. So I got these young people to play with, and they have the new ideas, and they bring in new stuff. Like the bass player, he plays hip hop all the time, so he comes in with this fresh ideas. And Michael, he writes the lyrics to all the songs, and he's got this young mind, that he can still say things that, for me, I don't know if that's true anymore. You can't say things that you used to say when you were a kid. You feel like an idiot, but he still has that, so that band satisfies my need to create. With the Lords, we just go up and play Billy Joel songs.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, this is the way it was. This is fun doing this. Where this one's fun doing it because it's creating, it's keeping you sharp.
Liberty Devitto, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Well, it was a pleasure. This was great.
For me too. Thank you for the music that you gave to us. For me personally, it, saved my life, I'm sure, a dozen times.
Well, if you still talk to your friend in school, tell him I'm sorry that I said that. Don't practice your rudiments.
Okay, Jimmy, you hear that? That's what he's
yeah,
talking
Jimmy.
about.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Liberty.
All right. I'll be seeing you on Facebook, I guess, until this pandemic. Where are you, in Georgia?
Yeah, Atlanta, Georgia. That's right.
I used to go there all the time. There was a Camp Jam down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be not a part of it, but I used to do the camps down there all the time.
Right. Well, we hope that that'll return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, folks, thanks again for joining us on this one. We have lots of other guests come in, lots of other great interviews. We hope you'll like our interviews. It makes a big difference to us when you push that like button. And we hope you'll visit us at Willow School, Georgia, and at Truer MU. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at one of those two places. We will see y'all next time. Thanks a lot.